To the members of the Spanish Congress, whose support is permitting us to take significant steps forward in the process of building an endowment, be sure that we will not disappoint you. So thank you very much. And finally, and very especially, not finally, and very especially for this occasion, to the AXA Research Fund that is funding a chair in macroeconomics risk, and that will be joining our board as one of our private patrons. I would like to highlight two aspects of AXA's support. One is that it takes the form of a contribution to our endowment, which from the private side is a first for us. The second is that it is a consequence of a European-wide call. In the world of research funding, this is unusual. The bulk of European-wide calls for research funding are from the European Commission and therefore account only for a very small fraction of research support in Europe, a small percent of this 1% you have heard. Albeit it is a quite strategic one, and precisely because of its European scope. It is perhaps understandable that public funding at the state level be statewide, and although some opening of calls will be desirable. It is therefore very welcome that from the private business and foundational world, we begin to see European-wide calls. AXA, in this respect, is setting the example. Chapeau et merci. From the Barcelona GSE, we are, of course, very satisfied at receiving AXA support, but also at getting it in this European context, because we always have seen ourselves as placed in the European arena in the following sense. We operate in the world, but we want to be recognized externally as an European institution and internally as an asset to Europe. And in this mood, let me congratulate our Honorary President, Commissioner Joaquín Almunia, for his recent appointment as Vice President of the European Commission. We are indeed very proud to count with such a distinguished representative of Europe as a member of our board. My last thanks go to the students. You have, in a sense, entrusted us with 1 year of your lives. It is a heavy responsibility, and we know well that it is incumbent upon us to deliver the educational experience you deserve. And I conclude, because I am sure you must have some homework to do, and I should give way to the conseller. Thank you.
It's a real pleasure for me to share today this moment with you once again. I was also with you the last years, for the occasion that has gathered us here, the opening ceremony of the Barcelona GSE academic year. I hope that your stay in Barcelona and your experience at the Barcelona GSE will be very fruitful, and that you will be able to enjoy your time in our city and in Catalonia while studying in the Barcelona Graduate School of Economics, a recent yet already prestigious institution. Last year, the crisis has dominated everything in the world. Today, the world is leaving the recession behind. Many countries have already come out of the recession. Others will do it during the fourth quarter of 2009. Forecasts are improving almost everywhere. In an uneven way, but they are coming out. And we must underline the role that some of the largest emerging countries, markets, China, India, or Brazil, are playing as engines of growth for this recovery. The big issue now is how to consolidate this recovery. If we can now say that we have avoided the worst, and that many countries are coming out of recession, that the world is coming out of recession, it is because of the decisive action of governments and central banks. That is, of the public sector. We have to be aware of this. Without this decisive action by governments and central banks, we would not be leaving the crisis behind. Now it's time to learn from past experience. We must try to learn from the mistakes that have caused the crisis. And although it is true that, in general, economists have not been able to predict the dimension of this crisis, it is also true that economists have made a decisive contribution by providing some essential conclusions about the world experience, especially the one focused on the big depression of the 30s of the last century. And if we are now living the crisis, it is because the world has learned from the past experience. In this crisis, almost everybody has made mistakes, so nobody can give too many lessons. So we should not give lessons, but we should draw all possible lessons from this crisis. This is why I'd like to congratulate to the professor Andreu Sapir for his excellent lecture. He has been able to provide to us with very essential lessons from the crisis in Europe. I fully agree with Martin Wolf, who said in his article of October 7th in the Financial Times, this is not a time for a return to business as usual. We have survived this crisis, but we could not cope with another, possibly bigger and yet more dangerous one in a few years. Let's now show posterity we are able to learn from history. We would be fortunate if after this crisis all the proposals for reforms that are currently being discussed become a reality. Now that the economy is starting to pick up, we should not forget our will to make amends. There will be other crises and other recessions in the future, for sure, but at least let us commit ourselves to making sure that these will be for different causes than the ones that have originated this crisis. Then we will learn about where we went wrong, and we will correct whatever is necessary, because learning from mistakes is a precondition for progress.